My name is Saeed Nisbat, and I have the honor and privilege to be the Fireside Chat questioner of tonight. And tonight we have a bright star in the Iranian community, not in the Northern California, but in the world. An entrepreneur, a technologist, and I will go through some quick list of achievements that Shadi has done. She was born and raised in Iran, attended Farzanegan High School, received the Medal of International Olympiad of Informatics in 1994, was it?
Yes. Now you all know how old I am.
She attended Sharif University and got her BS there, and she got her PhD from University of British Columbia. She is the winner of the 2023 Woman of Impact Award. A veteran of a new startup in the Bay Area, VP of Engineering at Palo Alto Networks for 11 and a half years, and Senior Exec VP of Engineering of Amplitude for 4.5 years.
Yes, almost.
Welcome.
Thank you.
And last but not least, I just realized that she has 2 adult children, and I cannot believe that. Shadi Jan, thank you for giving us the time, and I would like to start from the beginning when you went to Farzanegan High School in Tehran. How was your experience over there, and how did it prepare you to become a technologist, to go into high tech?
Yes, first of all, hello everybody. I'm so excited to be here with you all. I didn't expect such a big crowd. This is amazing, the work that you guys are doing and bringing everybody together and exchanging ideas. This is amazing. Yes, so about me, yes, I went to Farzanegan, and my dad wanted me to be a doctor. Actually, yeah, very surprised, traditional. He was actually a math teacher, but I don't know why he wanted me to be a doctor. And he actually wanted both of his kids, my brother also become a doctor. He actually became a doctor. My brother is 8 years older than me. But I was the one who realized that I can't do it. And I have to rebel. My rebellion against my dad was to basically go to Riyazi. I don't know if you guys know, in Iran, 9th grade, you have to pick a path, whether you go to Tajrubi, to national sciences, or you go to Riyazi, maths and physics. I actually went for a year and a half to the path of natural sciences. But then at some point I realized I cannot do it. I'm going to go nuts. I went to our principal and started crying that I don't know how to take it. And she said, "Oh, I'm going to talk to your dad." And I remember at the time, she talked to my dad, and my dad said, "No, I never forced her. I just persuaded her. She made the decision herself. She can decide if she doesn't want to do it." And I remember that night coming home, I was walking around our neighborhood, and I'm thinking, "Oh my God, what kind of decision I made? Now I can't, if I had gone and become a doctor and life had become hard, I would have always blamed my dad. It's all your fault. But now it's all on me. I've made the decision. Now I have to stick to that decision." So that's how it started. But also I remember in Iran, as you all know, they always tell to your face, girls are not as smart as boys. Why should we hire you as a woman? You might go on maternity leave, or you might not be working as much. And actually I feel like sometimes, this stereotype or these things, it was easier in Iran because it was in your face. Sometimes here there is the some subconscious bias are there, but they're not right in your face. So I remember when I was in high school in Farzanegan, I felt like the rebellion against the system, our geeky rebellion, is that let's try to prove them that we can also do as much as boys can do. So I remember, I was into Olympiad. And when I was in 11th grade, we went to the math Olympiad. And that year, when they announced the winners, there was no girls, they were all boys. But they basically announced the top 2 girls. So Roya Beheshti and I went and got an award. We were not the top one. Actually, we were both upset. Why did they even give us that? So the girls are not as good as boys, but let's give the top 2 girls some award. But then the following year, I went and got, to the computer one. I didn't make it to the math one. I couldn't get to the second round. I didn't make it to the physics one. I went for a whole summer and, in the camp for physics, but I wasn't one of the top 6. But I eventually went to to computer science, to informatic one. And I always tell people that had I gone to the math, I would have become probably a mathematician. Had I gone to physics, I would have become a physicist. But I got lucky. I didn't get into those one, and I went to computer, and I followed that path. But yeah, that was kind of shows that I really didn't know what I want to do. So you follow it. What happens in your life.
I wanted to set this up earlier, but since you asked the question about what year you have to, I think most people know. Let me just do a quick poll. How many people here finished high school in Iran?
Oh, wow, okay.
Yeah. And how many of you did take the concours, the entrance exam? And how many of you have a 2-digit rank in the concours? Come on, let's see hands. Amazing.
That's amazing, yeah.
I wouldn't. And how many of you are Sharif graduates or attended Sharif? Oh, see, there's a lot of compatriots.
Yes, there's a lot of classmates. But I'm sure there's a lot younger than I am. So
you can't be sure. I went to Sharif.
For a week.
For a week, yes. Now, transition to higher education. What motivated you to pursue PhD computer engineering? But before that, tell me, how was your experience in Sharif? And that was where you picked your major, right?
Yes, so I went to computer engineering in Sharif, software engineering. And I always tell, I'm telling my daughter these days because she's studying computer science. One of the regrets that I have when I went to college is that I was working full-time and I was a student, and I felt like I didn't do the student life as much. And I tell her, go enjoy life, don't rush through life. She's not listening to me. But, so yeah, I was going to Sharif, but I was working full-time. First I was teaching, and then I was working at Tehran municipality as a software engineer. And then, yeah, when I finished, one of the things I wanted to live Iran. I wanted to explore what else is there. I wanted to study abroad. So that's how I, applied and got admission at UBC and went there.
And you got your PhD from University of British Columbia. What did you work on for your thesis? Was it related to the things you did later on?
Actually, not really. So when I was at Sharif, of course, going through the path of Olympiad, you work a lot on the theory of computer science. So I was really doing my bachelor project on theory. And then I went to UBC, and my PhD was on scheduling and optimization, kind of operational research kind of field. And then while I was doing that, I was working with another professors, networking and mobile agent and so on and so forth. And actually my career was not about my PhD. It was following the path of the networking. That's how it started.
So you had the experience of working with for a couple of startups right after. That was, what was it, Incra and Vernier?
Yes.
How was your experience there? And what did you learn that you can tell us about, or it helped you in your next moves?
Yeah, actually, when I was almost graduating, I realized I'm not patient enough to do research. I need to go somewhere and see the result of my work right away. And then I decided I'm going to go to industry. And actually, I was very lucky that I worked at a startup. I joined as an intern. I worked for a summer, and then I decided to basically stay there while I was writing my thesis. And then suddenly they needed to create a new product line, and I said, Shadi, do you want to write the product line? The fact that you're given that opportunity doesn't happen in a big company, But I say one of the good things about startup is that there's lack of resources. And when there's lack of resources, you're given opportunity. And I started, this was an intrusion prevention system. So I started, building that module and that product line. And then that basically set me up. Next job, I was an architect, and that set me up for success. So being somewhere that there is, there is opportunity to experiment, take risk, that's very exciting. And that's what I think that's exciting about startups, where you challenge yourself, you take risk, and hopefully you'll get a big reward.
And you don't wait for people to come and tell you about those opportunities. You go and seek them.
Exactly.
And then after a couple of startups, you were done with them and you joined.
No, I've only worked in my life in startups.
Well, you consider Palo Alto Network startup?
Yes, because when I joined, there were 30 people.
Okay.
It was such a tiny company. I remember we were in Alviso. How many people know where is Alviso? Okay, you see? It's not far from here. So I remember, it's right on 237 that you're going east. It's at the border of San Jose. But there's a tiny little 2 streets that everybody knows Alviso because at the time, I don't know if it's still there, there was a Mexican restaurant. That's how people know Alviso. So, but it's a very small city. And I remember we would go to, not me, but our marketing people, they would go to trade shows and they say, oh, who are you? So Palo Alto Network. I said, oh, okay. So are you in Palo Alto? I said, no, you're not. So where are you? Alviso. Where is Alviso? Nobody knew the company. So it was a very tiny startup. I remember the first quarter that we had the product, we missed our earnings. Actually, our goal, we are set the goal, I think 500,000.
You were private then?
Yeah, of course, it was private. We set the goal of $500,000 and we made 350 or something. And I was saying, oh my God, this is the third startup that is going to fail that I'm in there. But yeah, we went through that, and and when I left Palo Alto 11 years later, there were about 8,000 people, a much bigger company.
So while you were there, I'm curious, do you have an example of a particularly complex technical problem that you solved or contributed to solving? What was the core of the problem that you worked on over there?
Yeah, so at Palo Alto, actually one of the way I went to Palo Alto was that my previous company, I was the chief architect and it was going through a hard time. And then a friend of mine, one of my colleagues from the company has gone to Palo Alto. He told me, come and chat with our CTO. And actually I went there mainly to kind of see how they're doing, kind of steal their idea or exchange ideas, whatever you want to call it. And I went and talked about how are you, because it's about, the field is network security. So, they were creating, Palo Alto is creating next generation of firewalls. So the idea is that, and as I said, I was working in intrusion prevention system and then on the security field. So I went and see, okay, how are they doing, what is the technology to basically, as all the packets that are going through the network and you want to basically detect the bad guy versus the good guys and bad traffic versus good traffic. And it was funny, the architecture was very, very similar, the kind of chips they were using, we were both using Cavium Oxyon chips. The pattern matching algorithm was very similar. Of course, they have a little bit of different, newer algorithm that they were using, but the concept, the way we were doing packet processing, they were very similar. But what was interesting at Palo Alto that was different than my previous companies was not a technology difference. It was about how they were positioning and what problem they were solving with that. So actually, I've learned through my previous 2 companies that were not successful. As a technologist, we all think it's all about the technology, and I make the best technology, and it's going to be. But you realize that it's a lot more than technology for a company to be successful. And go-to-market positioning, they're so critical. And the way they did the next generation of firewall, that's what Palo Alto was doing, is that you can detect. It used to be, you allow some traffic, you allow some port and drop some port. You open port 80 and drop port 21. That was old school when you have 80 was HTTP traffic and 21 was FTP. But it was changing, the world was changing. Not all the traffic were going, all the traffic are going through actually port 80. All of the apps that you all are using are running over 80 and then later on 443 SSL. But to basically, people who are running the network, they cannot just go block and allow ports. they have to really understand the application. So the concept of application-aware firewall, that's the position. But the algorithm underneath how to detect which application is running, it's very similar. But just how do you apply that, and and so on and so forth. So that's how I started. But eventually, I completely changed. I went into creating SaaS services and offerings to basically enable the firewalls to do their job well, and then I moved completely to data, big data processing, and so on.
So the core of your innovation and contribution was to switch from the port-based into the application.
Application. That was the core of Palo Alto originally. And then, as I said, when we went into to detect zero-day attacks, to detect new malwares, files that are going over the network, you run them into in a sandbox, you look at their behavior, detect based on the behavior of file, detect which one is malware or benign, and then you also instrument all of this behavior and do big data processing to basically detect, indication of compromise and provide insight and so on.
So 11 and a half years in Palo Alto Networks, and then you left to go to Amplitude.
Yes.
Why?
So actually, I didn't leave Palo Alto to go to Amplitude.
Okay.
After 11 and a half years, I could have stayed at Palo Alto and retired. It's a great company. I could be a lifer. But we got a new CEO. He has done great work. He told me that I'm a portfolio manager. He was very business oriented. And I felt like, and at Palo Alto, up until that point, I was always building the next new product line. My team was building the next new product and exciting things. And he truthfully has done great work, and he was thinking that his view for growth is coming a lot of acquisition. So and Palo Alto has done a lot of great acquisitions since I've left. So the question for me was that, is this exciting, or can I repeat that? Can I take the, so I said, okay, maybe I can think about what's next for me. So I actually decided that I want to go and give it another try. My kids are older. They were still at home with me. Now they have left. But my kids are older. I have more bandwidth. So I actually told Palo Alto I'm leaving in November of 2018. And for the first time in my career, I decided to be intentional, and because before I went from one job to another because somebody told me come in for a chat and they gave me an offer the next day or something like that. But this time I decided that no, I'm going to take the time to figure out what I want to do. So for 4 months, I started talking to people, and I was actually telling my partner that I feel like I'm an Uber driver because I was constantly going in, and at the time everything was all in person. So I would go.
And you weren't working during these 4 months?
No,
oh, okay.
I've already quit. I told them I'm gone, and then I would go and start. So I spent 4 months talking to different people. You would go to, and the whole space exploded because you would go talk to VC, they send you to their companies, then you would talk to that company, and they send you to their board member, and then it exploded. But I actually it was great because I got to meet a lot of different people, made a lot of great connections, and at some point I said, okay, that space has to converge. I have to make a decision. I cannot be a full-time talker and job seeker. So after that, of course, we are very lucky to be in this area at this time. There was a lot of opportunity. So I decided that among all of them, Amplitude is the best one, and I picked Amplitude. And I joined Amplitude 4.5, not completely 4.5 years ago, in April of 2019, I joined Amplitude.
Okay, we're not counting, okay. I want to move into a topic that you touched upon, navigating a male-dominated field. You said something about they don't think the girls are as smart, in high school as the guys are. I want to ask you, what are your strategies to overcome the challenges and biases in the working place, in Sharif, when most students are guys and you had to be one of the few females over there? What was your secret sauce of dealing with that?
Ignore them, just kidding. What happened is that there are times that you feel like an imposter syndrome, right? You look around the room, you don't look like anybody else. There have been so many meetings that I'm the only girl, and you feel like, do I belong? And you question yourself. But the reality is that, one thing that is very important, that you're there for a reason. So I think believing yourself that I've got here. So I remember actually there was a meeting, we had an offsite, and I had a new colleague. I'm not going to tell you who was. We had a new colleague, and I asked him, he was talking about something, and the next morning I said, I want you to explain it more to me. And he said, no, I'm not going to engage in this conversation. I said, no, I need to engage in this conversation. Shall I go talk to our CEO? I need that conversation to be happening. And eventually, he had a conversation. I'm not going to take no for an answer. I told him, I got to here, if I had taken no for an answer, I would not get to where I am. I want to have this conversation. Either I have it with you, I'll go have it with our CEO. So I think it's important to know that you are there for a reason. You're in that room, and don't let the intimidation get to you. And I think one thing that's important that actually, a lot of my friends tell me that they're in meetings and they get interrupted and somebody steals their idea and so on and so forth. As a woman, I never had that problem because I'm always very loud and I always, interrupt people. So naturally, I never had that issue. But I think it's important. Don't make sure that you're there. Prove your point. And do your homework, and don't be a victim. I think that's a very, very important one. I know that there are biases. I know that things are tough, but all of you have accomplished so much, gone through so many challenges. So many of you have migrated to a completely brand new country that you don't know anybody. So you've gone through so much. You can go through these things too.
How do you think that the industry can work towards creating a more inclusive and diverse environment for women?
Yeah, when a lot of people talk about diversity and inclusion, I actually talk about more inclusion and then diversity. If you have an environment that is inclusive, everybody benefits. It's not just the woman of the room or the people who are a different race. If you have an inclusive environment, because it's very easy to see that I'm a woman, you're a man, or I'm Iranian, and somebody else is American, because it's very obvious. But we bring so much different to based on all of our experience, what my child look like, what has happened, and everybody has that different perspective. That's why when you have an inclusive environment, you can achieve so much, because if you have an inclusive environment, you might have an idea, you say something, and because we're willing to hear that, I can build something upon your idea and I make it better. But if you're shutting down and not letting people who are not, look like us or whatever, give that idea, that whole creation and build-up of knowledge doesn't happen. So I always say that great teams are the one that the knowledge of the team is bigger than the sum of the knowledge of individual. People are building upon themselves. So, and I always say that, I think it's very important for us, depending on where you are, if you're in a meeting, to make sure that everybody find their voice. So if you're in a meeting, you feel like that somebody wanted to say something and their point was not heard, make sure that you take the extra time and say, oh, by the way, you had a point. Give the floor so that people can bring up that. And if you do that, if you create an environment that is inclusive, then everybody can grow, and of course, women can grow, and so on and so forth. So I think it's very important to be part of that. But the other thing that I always say, that you always are in an environment, you try to make it work, do your best, don't be a victim. But sometimes the answer might be to change your environment too. We all decided, a number of us decided to leave Iran. Yeah. So something was not working and we decided to change it. So sometimes it's okay. Don't feel like it's a failure. If it's not working in this, I go figure out somewhere that I can be successful, then I can.
So speak up and also model the inclusiveness that you would like to foster in the company.
Yeah.
Speaking of fostering principles, as the Senior EVP of Engineering at Amplitude, what leadership principles do you participate in? or do you foster? Do you?
I think one of the most important things for all of us, not only leaders, is to be curious. Curiosity is so important. So I remember when I left Palo Alto, one of people that I used to work with, he was not even in my team, he was in the Israel team, but he was working with my team correctly. He said, "Oh, Shadi, you know, of course he was saying all the pleasantry that, we miss you and so on and so forth." He said, "Shadi, we quote you." I said, "What do you mean you quote me?" He says that sometimes, as Shadi said, for my curiosity, can you please explain this to me? Because actually, the reason that I'm saying that is not I'm trying to fake it. I'm curious. I want to learn. I don't know everything, even though I might be the most senior person in that meeting. So being curious and be willing to learn from everybody, I think that is so important. The other thing is that I think, when I decided, I was a very technical person, then I decided to go to management. And actually my VP at the time came and told me, "Shadi, do you want to be a manager?" I said, "Why should I be a manager? Am I not doing the right job?" He said, "No, you feel like you can try it, give it a try." And I went and became a manager and I went up that ladder. But the reason that I basically stayed there because I felt like that I am part of and I'm witnessing people's growth, and that gives me such a, of course they take all the credit, they do all the hard work, but I am part of that journey that people are going through. So be there that you are all bringing everybody together and we are all growing and achieving a lot of outcome. I think that's so important that as leader, as human being, to be thinking about that.
I'm glad you're tapping on curiosity. We were chatting about our Saturday morning hikes, many of you have been part of. And if you've been to the hikes, newcomers, they have to deal with my questioning. And I pelted them with a series of questions because I'm very curious about them. And I encourage everybody who comes in to go deep, ask very, very deep questions about other people's, their work, whatever they do, their interests. So
yeah, and I think one thing that is very important, sometimes when people feel like imposter syndrome, they feel like they don't belong, then they won't let that curiosity happen because they feel like if I ask a question, I'm showing people that I don't know things. Yes. So it's as part of it to be able to be, it's okay, you don't have to know everything, and be able to ask questions and foster that.
I would like to ask about the future of technologies. Could you share your vision of the future of technology and its impact on business?
AI is going to take over the world.
Okay, so you want to go there?
No, I'm not going to go there.
How about time, the real-time data analysis? So what's going to happen over there? That's your alley.
Yeah, what Amplitude does, so maybe I can do a little pitch while let's just give that. So we basically do, we start as a product analytics company. So the idea is that you're building a product, you want to basically instrument your product, and then you want to understand the journeys that your users are going through. So, and you said, okay, these users are converting, these users are dropping off, these users are becoming subscribers, what path they're going, and how do I change my product to basically serve more users and be successful. Actually, the reason that I joined Amplitude, because I believe that if you go back 20 years ago, the success of the companies were defined by how good their sales and marketing is. That's why there was so much innovation in Salesforce and marketing cloud and marketing operation and so on. Now I think the good thing for us technologists is that the success of the failure of companies depends on the product, how good their product is. And if you build a good product, you can retain customers, and if not, you can. And actually, I used to always question that why one product becomes successful and another one is not successful. And a lot of time people feel like it's just intuition, whether the people who build it. But intuition can get you to a certain point. You have to really know data and use the data to understand how people are interacting to see whether your product is going to be successful or not. So that's why I believe, that's why I went, that's why real time. And I feel like what is going to happen now we are all improving. I think eventually, as you think about the product development, we have done a lot of improvement in the field of product development lifecycle, on the building side, and the agile development, and so on and so forth. I think there's going to be a lot of improvement on the side of, as you put something, you basically, as you build it, you give to customer how you learn it and so on and so forth. And I think eventually we're going to get to a lot of self-optimizing products that change, products that are adapting to the users and they're constantly optimizing. But I've seen a lot of examples of that, but I think it's going to become a lot more and more.
Or even repair themselves.
Exactly.
Oh, okay. We're going to I have two more questions, and after that, if we have some time left, we'll open the floor for your questions. But before that, I want to move into advice for aspiring engineers and entrepreneurs. What advice would you give to young individuals who are interested in pursuing a career in technology and entrepreneurship, especially those who may face challenges similar to what you experienced?
Yeah, I think for people who are earlier in their career especially, make sure, your career growth is not linear. Your career growth, there's some trajectory, and you want to have if you have a high growth at the beginning, it basically have a compounding effect, and you can grow a lot faster. So pick somewhere, that you feel like that you can have that opportunity of high growth. Maybe not necessarily optimize at the beginning for the highest salary. Optimize for that learning. As I said, I was lucky. I just happened to be somewhere that there was a startup, and I didn't make that choice intentionally. But I think that was one of the best things that happened to me. I was somewhere that I was given opportunity, and I could build that. So I think it's very important that, again, it goes back. Make sure you're at the right place, right environment for your growth. So, and again, if different people at different stages of their career. So earlier stage, I would always say that actually, I'm telling my daughter, I don't know if she's going to listen to me, that just go somewhere, go to a smaller company, go to startup, so that you can have that exposure. You would not be a tiny, tiny fish in a big pond. You will have a big area. So that's what I said. And the other thing is that, follow, we have a lot of entrepreneurs here. And I think follow your dream and, be willing to take a big chance. And a lot of time, you will not be successful, but you learn so much from that. As I said, my first two companies, I didn't make a dime. I remember I bought those shares and they become nothing. So I lost money on that, but that was the learning that set me up for my third thing. So don't get disappointed and just try it, and then at some point you're going to be successful.
And then I want to ask you about balancing career and personal life. How do you manage the demands of a successful career in tech, in high-tech industry, while you also maintain a healthy work-life balance? What's the secret there?
I think the definition is what is the healthy work-life balance, right? So everybody has to define it for themselves. What is important for you? Actually, people ask me, about having kids, right? I was actually, I divorced. I got divorced from my husband when my kids were 5 and I'm 6 years old. So I was kind of a single mom. I was working,
wow.
And one of the things that people tell me how I said, the good thing is about having kids. Of course, there's so many hard moments and things get tough, but there are days that I go, I go to a meeting, a boardroom or something, and I get beaten up that things are not going well. That happens all the time. And as I'm coming out of that meeting and I'm walking to my desk, I cannot fake things, so people can read through me. So I have to feel good about myself. So as I'm going, I'm not giving negative energy to people. So I said, I'm such a good mom. So I go and satisfy that. And some days that I'm dealing with my kids and they're telling me, I hate you, or you're so bad. I said, I'm such a good employee. So I feel good about that. So there are always, life has so many different elements, right? You
True
cannot,
balance,
yeah, exactly. You have to figure out what gives you the highs, how can you manage that. And there are days that I work very hard, and there are times that I, go on a lot of vacations. So it's not always constant that it's always going to be this model. But again, figuring out what works for you. So my partner, he has teams in India, Armenia, works with customers in Korea, Japan. He's working 24/5. So basically, at all hours he has meetings. I tell him, I can never live like you. So that's not, he doesn't have work-life balance, but he's managing it. So you just have to figure out what works for you. So for me, it would not have worked.
You balanced on a seesaw, essentially. Like one goes down, the other one goes up.
Exactly. Have that energy. What gives you the happiness?
Thank you. We have a few minutes if you guys want to ask questions. Raise your hands and please keep them brief. And we have a microphone that John can pass around. If you ask a question, please tell us your name and where do you work or what do you do. Anybody? Any questions? We have a question back there? Yours? No. Come on, you can ask question about Farzamegan or Sharif or... Nobody wants to ask anything?
My story was so boring. No, nobody has any question to ask.
No,
no, there's somebody here. There's a brave person.
I can ask one.
Oh, we have one over there.
So I'm Rishikesh, originally from India. You said, you were working in Iran. So in Iran, of course, maybe people believe that in America it's all great for women, freedom, and all that kind of. Were you surprised when you actually came here?
Very surprised.
That it was not so rosy after all?
Yeah.
Was life different than what you thought?
Yes, actually, yes, I think I was surprised. As I said, one of the things that surprised me as a woman, in Iran, it's in your face. Here, the biases, the prejudice are much more subtle. And I think it's much harder, actually, to deal with subtle biases than when you're in your face. I remember when my daughter she finished 8th grade, and they were giving the best math award to the graduation. So they picked 2 kids, a boy and a girl. My daughter was one of the girls, and they gave them an award. So she said that after the ceremony, one of the other boys came to her and said, the only reason they gave you an award because they wanted to pick a girl. And I told her, you should have told her, the person, the only reason that the other boy got an award because they wanted to pick a boy. But there is these subtle things, and I think the fact that if you're good in math, maybe you're not feminine enough, or these are much harder things to be dealing with. So yes, absolutely, there's a lot of things. Actually, I remember when I went to Canada at UBC. This is 1998, so many years ago. I was going and talking to high school students to basically encourage them to study computer science. But still, there's even to this age, after so many years, there's not a lot of. It's getting better, but there's still a long way to go. So yeah, absolutely, I think I was very surprised. I expected these are all only the problems are happening in Iran, and everywhere else is completely equal. But that was not the case.
Thank you. If there are no other questions, I have a question that...
He has a question.
We have one over here.
And there's another brave soul here.
Can we get the microphone over here? Thank you.
Hi. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Oh, okay. So my name is Amin. I finished my first year of engineering at the University of Toronto. I'm still an undergrad student. And so you recommended that for people in their early career stage, which I would consider myself as one, that you should go in a field that you can learn the most. I wanted you to a bit elaborate on that. So let's say in my case, I'm really, interested in physics. I was part of Physics Olympiad. So would you suggest me to, really don't go toward physics, try to go toward computer science where you can have the most growth? So I just wanted to know your opinion on that.
Yeah, I think that's a tough one because you have to see what do you like. I think that's the first part, right? Is that what gives you the high, And I think one thing, there was a quote someone once said, is that do the job that gives you the happiness, not what people say that is good. So if you're really passionate about physics, pursue that passion. But if you feel like that, I want to explore and say maybe I like computer science, don't go to computer science because you're going to make a lot more money because things might change. Tomorrow, maybe you don't have a lot of computer science, AI is going to take over the world. I'm just kidding. You can never optimize. You know, my dad wanted me to be a doctor because at the time he thought I'm going to make a lot more money as a doctor. But I followed my passion. I think I'm a lot happier person. So figure out what really gives you the high. That's the first thing that is important. But if you figure out what gives you the happiness, then if you pick that I want to be a physicist, there are different ways, different companies, different places that you can be a physicist. Then you can figure out, okay, which environment I have more potential, I have more opportunities. I have a quote. There's a quote that I really like. It says that luck happens when preparedness meets opportunity. So you have to prepare yourself. So you have to work hard, you have to study hard, you have to be in an environment, challenge yourself. But you also have to make sure that you have the opportunity. That's when you get lucky. So, work and see and look at all of these cases. Which one is, are you in the preparedness? So maybe I do this job, I'm going to get prepared. Or no, I know this field, I'm going somewhere that there's more opportunity. So think about that. But again, go follow what you really like. That's the most important part.
Thank you.
Thank you. On behalf of Plug and Play.
Oh, there's one person.
One more question.
I don't think we have
can you hear
time
me?
for that. If you make it very brief. One.
How brief? Like very brief or?
That was your question.
So Shadi Jan, I'm a curious person, so I try to make it brief. So let's say there is a genie here, and that genie can give you a superpower at work that make your life easier or give you an edge. What kind of superpower you want to get?
I have this high question.
Superpower that I want to have. Oh my God, that's a tough one.
As a leader.
Yes.
As a leader.
I think that's what we're always doing, and I feel we have to be doing is how do we inspire people to do their best. I think that's the most important thing.
Thank you. On behalf of, I got to do my thanks. On behalf of Plug and Play, Persian Tech Network, and the Iranian community, I thank you for coming here, Shadi Jan, and spending time with us. Thank you.
Thank you so much for having me.